Available, anything to refresh. Make sure that you know some testing too. Blah 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 blah.
Great point. You should. Great point.
Meeting call to order, please. Please join me in the prayers. Dear God, today as this session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessings on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please join me in the allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Counsel Getchia.
Here.
Counsel Janess. Counsel Leahy. Counsel Mercia.
Here.
Counsel Noon.
Here.
Counsel Robinson.
Here.
Counsel Roy.
Here.
Counsel Scott.
Here.
Counsel Yem.
Here.
Mayor Chow.
Here.
Counsel Drinkwater.
Here.
10 present.
Any memorials from any of the councilors? Hearing none, if there's an objection, I do have one moment of silence to request in Dock and Chamber. Before I start, I would like to welcome to the chamber the sons and daughter of Mr. Joseph Mahoney, John Mahoney and Anne Marie Koloski. Welcome to the chamber. And I wish you had come to visit us under different circumstances. It's my honor to reflect on the memory of Mr. Joseph Mahoney on behalf of his family. Joseph P. Mahoney, loving husband, father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. Joseph Joe P. Mahoney, 91, a Belvedere resident, passed away on Tuesday, October 25th, 2022, surrounded by his loving family. He was the beloved husband of the late Patricia A. Quinn Mahoney. Joe was born in Lowell on December 15, 1930, a son of the late Timothy G. Mahoney, former Lowell police officer, and Anna Reagan Mahoney. He attended St. Peter's Grammar School and graduated from Lowell High School. Joe married the love of his life, Patricia Tish Quinn, on April 11, 1952, and together they celebrated 63 years of marriage and raised a beautiful family of 5 children. Joe proudly served in the U.S. Marine Corps from 1951 to 1957 and as a gunnery sergeant during the Korean War. He was later stationed in Yokosuka, Japan. From June 1959 through July 1979, Joe served as a City of Lowell firefighter on Engine 9, Oakland Square, for the majority of his career. In addition, Joe worked as the Lowell Superior Court Reconciliation Program Coordinator, was a member and the chairman of the Lowell Retirement Board from 2002 through 2020, vice president of the Lowell Firefighters Union Local 853, member of the Lowell Firefighters Retirement Association, member of the Retired State County and Municipal Employees Association of Massachusetts, and a Lowell Firefighters Credit Union board member. Joe was also a lifetime member at the Lowell Lodge of Elks. Joe was a parishioner of the Immaculate Conception Church, where he formed many beloved friendships. Upon his retirement, Joe attended masses daily and served as a Eucharistic minister and sacristan. Joe was very proud of his family and provided them with a life of love and happiness. He worked hard to provide for his family, and some of his favorite time was spent with his loved ones at holidays and family gatherings and celebrations. He was extremely proud of all his children and their accomplishments. Pa was the name he was later given by his grandchildren. Pa was loved dearly and had a special relationship with all of his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. In between raising his 5 children and working, Joe stayed busy maintaining his house and yard. He was constantly showing off his carpentry skills and keeping his flower pots in full bloom. Joe also had many friends. He enjoyed conversations on his porch, breakfast at M.L. Shaw's, dinners at Grass Fields and the 99, and telling jokes, even though he would often be laughing too hard and couldn't get to the punchline, making everyone laugh more. Anyone who knows Joe will tell you that he was an amazing man who lived a life of faith, family, and love, and his legacy will live on with the examples he has instilled in his children and grandchildren. He will be dearly missed by many. Surviving Mr. Mahoney are his 5 children, Maureen Welch of Tingsboro, Anne-Marie Koloski and her husband David of Lowell, Patricia McCabe and her husband Thomas of Pelham, John Mahoney of Lowell, and Joseph Mahoney Jr. and his wife Becky of Lowell, his 10 grandchildren, Douglas Welch and his wife Helena, Timothy J. Welch and his fiancée, Amy Clark, Heidi P. Koloski Upton and her husband Michael, David Koloski, Amy K. Koloski Valeras and her husband Stephanos, Patrick T. McCabe, LFD, and his wife Megan, Thomas J. McCabe, Kaylee P. McCabe Lupian and her husband Adam, Molly Q. Mahoney and John D. Mahoney, 9 great-grandchildren, Brady and Alexis Welch, Quinn, Cara, and Casey McCabe, Brock, and Jake Upton, and we just talked about Brock earlier, Anne-Marie, and Britney and George Valeras. Joe was also the father-in-law of the late Thomas J. Welch and brother of the late John Mahoney, Gerald Mahoney, Mary Allaby, Kevin Mahoney, and Ann Trudell. Mr. Clerk and people present in the audience, please dim the light and ask for a moment of silence in honor of Mr. Joseph P. Mahoney. Thank you, John and Anne-Marie, for being here. We now go to the next item on the agenda, number 2, Mayor's Business. 2.1, Communication Remote Zoom. I'm sorry, I skipped a line item. I believe Councilor Mercier have something to add on behalf of Mr. Joseph Mahoney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I knew that we were going to say something, so when you dim the lights, I said, well, that's okay. But anyway, you did a great job on the moment of silence. I brought the whole presentation in case someone did not think of that, because we go back a long ways being here. When you get my age, you kind of know people, so I knew Mr. Mahoney, wonderful man, very proud firefighter. When we'd have the memorial service at the JFK Civic Center, he would always be there. Retired, of course, but never missing it. And of course, he was a gunner sergeant in the Korean War, very instrumental, serving our country, mild man, gentleman from the word go. And I knew that he was a Eucharistic minister, but many years ago, he was at Mass so much doing the communion, I thought he was a priest. But be that as it may, a wonderful gentleman. I'm glad you brought that up. I just brought it with me in case someone didn't think, but he has a wonderful family. We're very, very sorry. My heart goes out to the family. We offer our condolences to the family, relatives, and the many friends. May he rest in peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor, for acknowledgement. Any other councillors? And Mr. Clerk, please also note comments by Councillor Mercier under the moment of silence as well. Thank you. We now go to the Mayor's Business 2.1, Communication Remote Zoom Participation. Motion to accept and place on file by Councillor Scott, second by Councillor Yam. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried.
Following up on the
We now go to 2.2. It's a presentation and an event that I'm very honored to be a part of. This is for the CTI Youth Homelessness, and it's an event that's been carried by all the mayors before me. It's a great tradition to carry forward. And here with us today are members from CTI, and Nick DiGiamo is here to make a presentation and invitation of the councilors and the public to attend.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the rest of the City Council. I'm just here to talk briefly about an event, as you mentioned, that's coming up. It's an evening to end youth homelessness. I'm the program manager of CTI's Youth Services Program. We work with 16 to 24-year-olds in Lowell and the surrounding communities that are dealing with housing instability, as well as perform case management operations and provide services for young families between the ages of 14 and 24. So anybody who is a young adult and pregnant or parenting can receive those services as well. We operate out of a space at 167 Dutton Street. We call it the Milieu, but the building in and of itself is called the Youth Opportunity Center, and that is dedicated to young adults who are in need of services like the ones we offer, as well as some other programs that are vital to our community. I'd like to first thank the mayor, as well as the former mayors Leahy, Samaras, and Kennedy for sponsoring this event year after year. It's been really vital to our programming and the services that we provide. The money that we raise as donations in the past has been used to basic needs, different services that we provide, such as housing. In the past, it has been a event over at Olympia. But because of COVID, we were not able to hold it in person the last couple of years. But Mayor Leahy helped us provide that over Zoom and as far as raising funds virtually. But we are happy to bring it back this year to Mill number 5. We're going to be on the 5th floor on the evening of Thursday, November 10th from 6 to 9 p.m. There's going to be music, entertainment, food, cocktails, and a lot of information about the work that we do. So we are happy to invite everybody who's interested in learning about that work, as well as those who have been super supportive to us in the past. I have some invitations here, but I have passed them around, I believe, in the last few weeks. But if you do need any more information, or if people are looking for us, you can find us on the ComTeam website, comteam.org, under events. We're going to have raffles, donations, activities, and like I said, a lot of information on the work that we do. So we're very excited about it. If there's any questions that I can answer while I'm here, I'd be happy to do so. But again, very important event for our community and our young people. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Nick. Any comments, questions from members of the council? Hearing none, I just want to say great job, and everyone is invited. It's going to be a great event, and it's for a good cause. Hearing no other comments, need a motion to accept and place on file by Councillor Leahy, second by Councillor Guichia. All in favor say aye. Councillor, I thought you raised your hand to second. You have a question or comment?
No, I just have one challenge for you, Mr. Mayor. So
We have to discuss that right now?
I had 2 non-events, which were very successful. So now the pressure's on you to actually have the event and to be successful. So we wish you all the best.
The rose is
pressure.
Thursday, not tonight.
All the best.
Thank you, Councillor. All joking aside, thank you for your support last year, and we are continuing these great traditions, and hopefully we'll make it a success, a bigger success as a success for the youth. So we got a first by Leahy, second by Councillor Guichia. On favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to Section 3, City Clerk, 3.1, Minutes of Economic Downtown Development Subcommittee, October 25th. City Council regular meeting, October 25th for acceptance. Motion to accept and place on file by Councillor Drinkwater, second by Councillor Nguyen. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We don't have public hearings tonight, so we're going to jump straight into communication from City Manager, which is Section 4. The motion responses will start with A. motion response on electric vehicles. Any comments, Councilor Yam?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to say thank you to Chief for a great report. And I really appreciate it. I understand the cost of electric fire truck is not feasible at this time. However, I saw you have take initiative to make the Lowell Fire Department more greener in step with the sustainable Lowell 2025. I know electric fire truck is in its infancy, but some fire departments throughout the country, such as Los Angeles, California, Madison, Wisconsin, Portland, Oregon, and Mesa, Arizona, has employed some of the electric fire trucks because their commitment to achieve carbon neutrality. Also, sir, I know that this past April, I saw the Rev Fire Group. They have is one of the 3 companies who produce electric fire trucks. What they did is they debut their fully electric fire truck at the FDC International Trade Show, Indianapolis, Indiana. I saw the truck. It was really, really nice on the show. It looks like a sci-fi kind of movie truck, and you can tell I'm a fire truck enthusiast when I was growing up. So, and also I know the cost is a lot. So, is there a way that we can look at the federal and state funding to maybe apply? And the chief may know. I understand that there is the assistant to firefighter grants and also the fire prevention and safety grants, and then the other grant is staff for adequate fire and emergency response called SAFER grants, and FEMA also has some grants too. And I'm not sure there's a Lowell Fire Department, we have a grant writer full-time to support that or not, sir?
Yes, Councilor, we do have a full-time grant writer. Probably in the electric vehicle area, we would be looking at AFG and a project associated with that. We would need to probably invest in the infrastructure to support the vehicle itself, as indicated in the motion response. But I believe once we got to that point, then we could consider potentially approaching one of the manufacturers.
Yes, that's great. I saw that, sir. I saw you respond that the infrastructure and support that needed, because this type of fire truck, electric fire truck, because of the station we have, it's not supportive of this at the moment. But if we put this in, like our planning, future planning, like Los Angeles Fire Department, they work with the manufacturer for 10 years to build this truck and to build the infrastructure to support. So, anything you mentioned in your report, you make some changes to make it more of a hybrid and electric, the jaw of life. And it's a right step, it's a good step in the right direction, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we'll now go to the next motion response. B, Great Lowell Technical High School stipend with attachment. Councilor Rook, no comment?
All good.
Comment? Who raised their hand? Did somebody have a comment or question? Okay, hearing none, we now go to the next line item, which is C on Monument Committee Senior Center. Councilor Robinson and Councilor Gishia. Any comment, councilors? Thank you. No comments. We now go to the next item, motion response C. Actually D, motion response on the Conde bench. Any comment, Councilor Mercia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Upon talking to the father, it seemed like they wanted and had it already approved to be at the Raleigh Farm near the pond area, but now I'm understanding that they want it at a park. So they chose the Father Maguire Park. I think that that's sufficient if that's what they want. It's not very easy to lose a child that young, or any age for that matter, and our heart goes out to the family, and so if that would offer some comfort to them, I think that would be fine. So I think the city is working on it according to this. They said that they would be willing to pay for it if the city would be kind enough to have that happen. So I think it's working out all right. Isn't it, Mr. Manager?
Mr. Manager?
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. No, Councilor Rourke?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the manager. I know that there's currently a redesign in place for Father Maguire. There was some money that was received from the city, from the state last year. So I don't know if we could be in touch with the family or just, could be implemented within the redesign of Father Maguire Park. Thank you.
Councilor Robinson, you all set? Any other comments? Hearing none, we now go to the next line item.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Robinson?
can I make a motion to take item 9.5 out of order? I believe we have a registered speaker that's present.
Okay. Motion by Councilor Robinson to take item 9.5, you said?
Yes, 9.5.
9.5 out of order, second by Councilor Yam. 9.5 is a motion by Councilor Robinson, request city manager have property department explore the feasibility of offering discounted residential property tax rates to landlords willing to offer discounted rental prices to incentivize affordable housing costs. Second by Councilor Nguyen. Councilor Robinson, would you like the registered speaker to go first?
Yes, please.
Mr. Clerk, please call the speaker.
Karen Frederick.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor Chow and City Councilors. I'm here to speak in regards to motion 9.5 by Councilor Robinson. And I am Karen Frederick. I'm the CEO at Community Teamwork. I know you're all aware of the work that the city and partners worked on several years ago with Barb Poppy, a national expert on individual homelessness. At that time, it was prior to the pandemic, and it was determined that there were at least 300 units of single-room occupancy needed for single individuals. Post-pandemic, and in the midst of a national and certainly local housing crisis, we estimate that number is more like 500 at this point. And that doesn't speak to the number of thousands of units that are needed for family housing that have not been built over the past several years. Today, we're facing a crisis, not only in individual homelessness, but in family homelessness here in Lowell and across the Commonwealth. Tonight, it's likely that there's not one shelter room available for a family needing a place to stay. And we are a right to shelter state, which means that anyone who's eligible gets placed. The Commonwealth just put out an emergency procurement for family shelter beds, and they are expanding beds for individuals as well. The problem is, those of us who provide service cannot find affordable buildings to use to respond to those great needs. And as you know, there are people with housing subsidies in hand who can't find a place to use them. There's two components really to this problem that need to be addressed in this crisis. One is preservation of affordable housing. Many buildings are being sold and renovated, driving out those who currently live there with increased rents. Councilor Robinson's motion is one that would help preserve desperately needed affordable units in this city. Another preservation strategy is something like a loan pool for small property owners to do repairs, to bring back units that are offline because of code violations, and some of them have even been condemned. Some cities are doing loan pools for that purpose to make sure that every single empty unit can be used. And many of our property owners are small landlords who can't afford to take this on their own. Incentivizing property owners is an important tool to use to preserve affordable housing. The other component is production of units. This crisis will not end until there are enough units and places for people to live. Not nearly enough housing is being produced, and we're losing units every day, not just for extremely low income, but for low income, moderate, and middle income families and individuals. The community teamwork, the Greater Lowell Community Foundation, the Chamber of Commerce, the Lowell Plan, South Middlesex Opportunity Council, who operates the shelter, one of the shelters here in Lowell, and the city have been working for the past year, meeting weekly on the production issue. We have 60 new units that will be available in the next few months, but we have a long way to go to get to 300 or the really needed 500. We need help from the city, state, and federal government and the private sector to do this work. Private developers have stated they do not do this kind of housing because it is a long process, it's complicated, and it's costly. Financing for these kind of projects can take up to 2 years if you're going through the Department of Housing and Community Development. And the developers we're currently working with state that zoning and permitting are barriers that add to their costs and their already long processes. And these are units that would be available for very low income. There's a lot of work to do, and community teamwork greatly appreciates our partnership with the city. We'll continue to work hard to bring forward and support initiatives that both preserve and add to the production of new units for those who are in desperate need, which is what this motion does. So I thank you for your time. I'm happy at any point to talk to any of you about homelessness and the work we're doing at Community Teamwork. It really is hard work. We have put time, effort, and our resources into doing this. And we will continue to do so because it is our mission to do this work. So thank you.
Councilor Robinson?
Thank you. I'd like to thank the speaker. This motion came about, again, I know for years we've been incentivizing commercial development, TIFs, all those kind of things. Rent control can't be mandated. That's one of the things I'm sure everyone here hears from our residents. Rent prices are through the roof. So, I mean, I figured this was a good motion to draft, throw on the table, and it's infancy stages. I think it's open to all kinds of constructive criticism and trying to get from an idea to something that can actually be a pilot, possibly. I think, again, CTI, they actually have existing infrastructure that could kind of monitor and report back, so to say, what landlords are willing to engage and offer a discounted rental price in order to make sure that it's not being abused, a pilot program like this. I also think anytime we can kind of incentivize private business owners, private property owners to lower prices to help people, one thing we have to keep in mind is if a tenant is receiving a discounted rent, that leaves them with a little bit more disposable income to put into the local economy, and it comes back in a different way. So I think any kind of tools that we can bring forward and start to brainstorm and have conversations around, I think it's very important. Again, with a little bit of reading I've been doing surrounding this, one of the big problems they're finding, not just in Lowell, but nationwide, the vouchers aren't being used. People that qualify for lower rent vouchers can't find the houses. So will this increase potential inventory or make some rents affordable that might not have been? I don't know, but I think it's a good starting point to have a conversation. And again, I look forward to working with my colleagues in the administration and our community partners to see if this is a pilot that we can get going. Thank you.
Councilor Yam?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to thank my colleague, Corey Robinson, for filing this, and thank you, Ms. Frederick, for addressing the issue, and I appreciate CTI work on this in eradicating homelessness in our city. I'm speaking today on behalf of a small landlord who have been dedicated to help family who cannot afford high rent. So they're willing to rent a really low rent to family working with CTI. However, they want me to say that they need support from CTI because the tenant that were placed has been a difficult tenant. They receive RAF assistance from CTI to live in the affordable apartment. Carl talked about two-bedroom apartment cost $2,000, $3,000. They only charge $1,500 to support the family so that they can live in the apartment. However, the tenant does not be a good tenant. They gave the landlord hard time. They received 3 months rent, and then from there they stopped paying rent. So I would like to also tell you that the landlord, small landlord, need assistance too. So they need support from CTI because they put the interest of the tenant first because they want to help with their good heart, but they need support from the CTI, from the city, and they have to get support in order for them to continue. Otherwise, they would stop. You know, if one landlord having so much difficult time, they have a two-family home, they rent two-family for that need helps, but in fact that they got burned, and this word can really spread, and if they have other landlord have apartment, they shy away from helping out the family who are in need. So the need is both way, the landlord, small landlord particularly, and also the family and the resident as well. So thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councilor Kishia?
Thank you, Mayor Chow. I just have one question. I think it's great that if there's a way we could lower rents, but I just guess my question comes down to if they can add into the report where the funding source would come from. Right now, I just look at people are calling me every day about their water and sewer bills, and we're looking at property tax. I'm wondering if a program like this was in place, where would that funding source come from? Would it be a grant, or would it be based into our taxes for the residents? Thank you.
Councilor, is this something you want the manager to answer now? You want him to explore
No,
for the next meeting?
if you can just add it into the report when the
Okay.
report comes back.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank CTI, in particular the Karen Broderick, the CEO, for all their work, with the city over the past couple of years and more. The concern that she brought up is some things that bother a lot of us as well. That's now the number is going from 300 to 500 of housing shortage. And, CTI and other partners try, even, with vouchers and wraparound program. The issue we have is they cannot find a place to place the people, the family. And that is a concern. I think this, the motions that Councilors Robinson put forth is one way to really incentivize property owners, small property owners or multi-unit property owners to really reduce the rent. And I think Director of the CEO, Broderick, also mentioned there's also a possibility of maybe included in it is the loan to fix the vacant unit so that those single family who do not have the resources to fix that, additional unit in their property now can. And then house the unhoused family through vouchers or a wraparound program that CTI and other partners provide to the families of unhoused population. So this is great. The issues of housing in housing shortage and homelessness is one of Councilor Mercier spoke of a number of time ago. It's a crisis, and not just in Lowell, not just in the state, nationwide. How can anyone afford a one-bedroom $1,700? Really, even if you get paid $20, $25 an hour, still almost 60% of your income go into rent. Just unbelievable. So we as a community, as a leader, need to find way to address this, together. We can't say, well, we can't do this, we can't do that. If that's respond, the issue will continue, maybe compounded. So it's affect not just housing crisis, not just affecting those population, unhoused population, it affects the community, the city. And as a leader, we need to find a way to address it together in this elephant in the room as well, the issues of ADU. We have to do it in a way that is respectful of the neighborhood. Zoning as well, looking at way that, sitting down with neighbor, with resident, with everyone and said, how can we do this together? So I'm looking for that day that we can have that discussion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an excellent motion, in my opinion. This is thinking about, we have people that are homeless. Actually, there's another group of people that are called the working poor, and we heard about their situation through the subcommittee that Councilor Noon, Councilor Yem, and John Drinkwater, Councilor Drinkwater had. Very, very interesting, with members of CTI and Carl Howell, who came forward and talked about what CTI is doing. It's a very, very important when you stop and think of the families that are losing their housing because they can't afford the rents and the pays are not up to par that equal their availability to have shelter. So they're doubling up and tripling up with other families. They're couch surfing. They're living crowded in an apartment because they lost their house because they can't afford it. This is very, very sad. Maybe we don't feel it, but we see it. We see it, and something has to be done, and this motion is a start. It's a start to something very, very important. When a one-room studio bedroom is costing $1,700 to $2,000 a month, and you're making minimum wage, how can you afford it? Then you have children on top of it. It's just too much. So if we could offer, and this is a good idea, offer some sort of relief to the landlords that are willing to offer probably a month's rent of $700, $600, $700, $800 in that area, that they could work and still pay to put a roof over their family's head. I think this is an excellent motion. It's a start on finding a solution. We have to help too, the city. I know, where is the funding coming from? I understand that. Maybe we can look somewhere and give extra in the ARPA funding. I don't know, but it's thinking. Someone is thinking, and I appreciate that very much. It bothers me to know that people have to live like that, and it affects the children when they go to school and they didn't have a decent sleep, or they're crowded and they couldn't do their homework properly, and they're distracted, and there's so many factors into it. So it's tough enough to teach students, but when they're facing couch surfing and everything else, that other children don't have to be bothered with thinking about that. That's a very difficult situation. But this is a motion that it has an idea. It's a start. It's an idea. So thank you, Councilor Robinson, for bringing it forward, and I do support it. Thank you.
Councilor Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I think this is a really good motion to get the conversation started. Just wanted to add a couple comments for things to consider as we consider a response to this. One is that I just think it's important to make sure that in this case, any subsidized rental unit is getting connected with the residents most in need of that subsidized housing. As we've heard tonight, there are many, many families in this city who are working with organizations like CTI who have some form of subsidy, whether it be through the RAF program, who are out there desperately trying to find units that are affordable for them. So I think it's important to make sure that if we are incentivizing landlords to offer units at affordable prices, that those are getting to to the families who are currently working with organizations in the city to try to find affordable housing. I can, envision a scenario where, a landlord may benefit from a subsidy and offer a rent at an affordable price, and it ends up, getting used by someone who may have a higher income if we don't have guidelines in place to make sure that those are getting used by lower income families. So just one important consideration. And then I think the other two is that we should try to make sure that if we are offering what are essentially tax subsidies to property owners, that the priority is going to property owners who maybe aren't legacy landlords and may own their homes outright, and frankly could make a pretty good profit even with offering rents at affordable prices. But making sure that those property owners who might be on their first mortgage and are still pretty far away from paying that off and renting a unit to try to make sure that they're made whole every month. Those would be the landlords who I think could really benefit from some form of tax subsidy in the way of property tax relief, so that they can then offer those rents at a slightly more affordable price and still make sure that they're able to pay the mortgage and be made whole every month. So just a couple of considerations if we're formulating a new program. Just want to make sure that it's meeting those who are most needy in our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. And see, this kind of motion, great ideas just already started coming out from my colleagues. So I really appreciate that. I'd just like to be clear. Initially, I was thinking, as far as the subsidy or something, it's. I think we have multiple options. Everything's on the table. I mean, we could approach it one way where we're not putting money in up front. We'd be collecting less in the back end of it. So again, it would definitely impact the tax revenue stream, which is something that I'm sure everything would have to be adjusted as a result. We don't know how many, how much. Everything is still on the table. So as far as that, the reason I mentioned CTI would be a great ally, for one, existing infrastructure, they're familiar with monitoring costs of rents for a lot of people that are already in the programs. So, I mean, I don't believe the city has the capacity to monitor what landlords are actually offering a discounted rate. So again, bringing people in for conversations around this, I think the template's there or the draft is there, and let's all pluck away at this. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Are there any more requests to suspend the rule to take an item out of order? Hearing none, we now go to where we left off on the agenda with the communication from the city manager on the motion responses. We now will continue with motion response E, VFW, and Rook Bridge. Any comment, Councilor?
Yeah, thank you for the report. It looks like the only hold up maybe is, handicap sidewalks on both sides, but there is crosswalks on the Highland side that are right off the bridge, and hopefully you keep on working on this for the other side. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Kishia.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. Through you to Manager Golden. Manager Golden, have we seen any preliminary drafts, drawings of the new Rook Bridge?
Mr. Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Yes, it's actually online. It is, I think, Councilor Rooker talked, it's item number 3, option number 3, excuse me, that's the title for it. It is option number 3. I know that we reached out to MIS from the city of Lowell to attach a button, if you would, to go directly to it, and I'm not sure if the assistant city manager has any of that information that we could send out to the council. But it is something that that I have actually seen myself, but maybe we could search through Mass DOT to get that connected to the councils.
Do you know if that side of the bridge is going to have crosswalks going across the boulevard?
I do not know that. I don't know if traffic engineers actually, the traffic engineer is also looking at that whole section. The bridge, the area in question we're talking about is where Market Basket is on the Pawtucketville side.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, across Brunswick.
Thank you, if I may. There The current plan is to put the work bridge so it angles across the river and comes in opposite Old Ferry Road. I keep calling it West Ferry Road, I'm sorry, Old Ferry Road, and it will be a full signal, crosswalks. They're planning a shared use path, so bicycles will be able to travel on either side of the bridge. It's a really nice wide bridge, so it'll have good connections to pedestrian and bicycle facilities on both sides of the river.
I agree with Councilor Rourke in the fact that right now it is extremely dangerous, and especially where it's getting darker earlier at night. They're right on that corner, ready to walk across, and you can't see anybody if it's not well lit. If there's any way that we could maybe work with the state or try to light up the area so people actually could see people waiting or trying to cross that road, but I get the cost, but maybe there's something we can do in the interim just to say, hey, there are people here.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, we now go to the next motion response F on Pawtucket Street. That was a motion by myself, and I want to thank the managers for the report to increase pedestrian safety on Pawtucket Street in the area of Walker Street and the the Fortune Flame and Sweet ice cream area. Have no other comments. Any other comments or questions by any of the councilors? Hearing none, we'll now go to the next motion response G, motion response on Route 110 and First Street. Any comment or question, Councilor Robinson?
Yes, thank you. Again, I appreciate this report. I understand this is a state road. MassDOT District 4, I believe, is responsible for this. It's another one of those areas that people have been talking about for quite some time, and I'd like to see the incident reports reported in the past 3 to 5 years, so I'll be putting in, if I have to put it in for a motion, or if I could just request it through this. I think with a lot of these, we're getting a lot of traffic reports back, and I don't know what it is. It's almost like an industry standard, it seems like, where the focus is on process, not outcomes. It's like we're relying on standards and not observations or requests, and we're kind of prioritizing like engineering values over human values. Like, this is, when there's an issue, I mean, do we sit back and wait until it's too late and say we woulda, shoulda, coulda? Or do we kind of try to address this, even if it doesn't check all the necessary boxes and traditional? But I mean, anyone that's familiar with this area, you have 2 streets that dump out right onto First Street. First Street intersects with, I believe it's the down street, you know, I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of the street. But then you have to go another 15, 20 feet and take a vicious sharp right turn to get to 110, where the speeds are going from a dead stop to 40 miles an hour plus. And that's not even counting the people that are trying to navigate and take the illegal left. So I think a reconfigure at least, and I'm not looking for the city to move overnight on this. This is major infrastructure and construction. But all I'm looking for, when we put requests in for troublesome areas like this, can't we just get a report back that says, okay, these are potential reconfigurations that we think would mitigate these problems, and these are the costs with it, and then let the council have those discussions. But to keep getting back motion response after motion response, just saying we're not going to do that at this time, or it can't be done, that's not really a can-do attitude. I mean, there's no problem throwing in there's going to be a bike path on First Street. I'll tell you what, I've never heard a resident at a door tell me that they wish they could pedal a bike down First Street coming off of 110. But I've heard plenty of residents say, I wish they'd reconfigure that whole area because I almost get killed trying to pull out of there in the morning. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions on that motion response? Hearing none, we now go to the next motion response H, 19 Hurd Street. Any comments, Councilor Leahy? And Councilor Jennings is not present. Thank you, Councilor. No other comments from other councilor. We now go to motion response I on Dunn and Margaret Street. Councilor Jennings is not present, but any councilors here want to make any comment or have any questions? Councilor Yan?
I saw the redraw of the design, the corner there. The question I have would be, that used to be a flower shop. If you coming southbound on Dutton Street and the bus stops right there at the traffic corner where the gas station, Hafner gas station, and one side used to be flower shops. If I'm driving behind the bus on the right lane and the bus have to stop there, that means that lane is going to be blocked. So how do we get around to, to help the other cars behind the bus that make the stop at that corner of Dutton and Market Street? So,
Mr. Manager, through Mr. Manager to traffic engineer.
The bus stops will be in the same location as they are today and function the same way. They'll just be safer and a better landing area for the pedestrians that are waiting for the bus,
Right.
and to and that as they disembark. So the vehicle traffic that are behind the bus will have to wait, similar to the situation that it occurs today. There's not enough room to have a pull off on either side
Right.
of Dutton Street in that location,
Right,
so it will
right.
function the same way as today,
Mhm.
except it will be safer for pedestrians to enter
Yeah.
the bus.
it's just a question. I understand it is currently like that, but as we redesign and make a better, safer, I'm just wondering if a way we can somehow. I know it's not enough room to do a pull off, but I appreciate it. A great report, and it looks great. Hopefully, it'll get done soon. Thank you.
You all set, Councilor? Okay, Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Just before transportation engineer. So that situation there, that's been on this agenda for years too, because people crossing from coming from Gormley's or the Paint Store, whatever, trying to get into the downtown to use the banks and whatever, there's no safe way to cross there. So that needs to be addressed too. And for years, they've been saying, well, we don't want to stop the traffic because we stopped the traffic further at the street over by cobblestones, but we've got to make it safer. You can't just, right now, I think there's a 1 second or 2 second delay, but people are still in the middle of the street while other people are trying to turn right, and some drivers have patience and some don't. So that needs to really be addressed too, as the crossing situation.
Agreed. When the ADA ramps and the crosswalks are all implemented, the designer will also look at the timing of the intersection to make sure that everything functions the way it should to get the pedestrians across the street.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, that complete the motion responses. We now go to 4.2, the information reports on Low Catholic. Mr. Manager, do you have a report, or would you like to just answer councilor questions? Okay, any member of the council have any questions or comments on the Low Catholic report? Okay. No comments or question. Thank you. So that completes the communication from the manager. Now need a motion to accept and place on file by Councilor Leahy, second by Councilor Rourke. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to section 5, which are the votes from the city manager. Okay, on the first vote is amend TIF agreement, 330 Jackson Street, LLC. I'm gonna read the items first, and I understand we have a registered speaker. City of Lowell and City Council vote amending a March 8, 2022 vote, which approved a certified project for 330 Jackson Street, LLC, and authorized a tax increment financing also known as TIF, agreement to modify the project timeline. Need a motion to adopt by Councillor Scott, second by Councillor Robinson. Mr. Clerk, I understand we have a registered speaker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's Shaw Rosen. She's on Zoom.
City law and city council vote amending a margin.
Yeah, Shaw Rosen. You have to unmute.
Mr. Rosen, we could not hear you in the chamber. I'm not quite sure if it's your device on mute, or maybe you can speak closer to the microphone.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Ms. Rosen, we can hear you more clearly now. If you could speak even closer. Now, your video's on now. I think you can start now. Thank you. Ms. Rosen, you may begin. Mr. Clerk, can you try one more time to see if you can communicate with her?
I don't know what the situation is. She might have to unmute.
Okay. Okay, right. Yeah, just wait. Ms. Rosen, can you see us? Can you hear us on your Zoom screen?
Okay.
Now we can hear you. Please begin.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you clearly, yes.
Hello?
Ms. Rosen, please begin. We'll wait 10 more seconds. We might have technical difficulty. We might have to move on.
Okay. All right. Yes. Great.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. So the only change on this from when it was voted,
okay. Ms. Rosen, while you take care of the technical
Is this
difficulty, I'm going to go to the floor. Any councilors have comments or questions? Councilor
Hi.
Gishia?
Is this better?
Ms. Rosen, I'm going to ask you to wait till we have the comments and questions from the councilor at this point.
Better? Are you able to hear me now?
Ms. Rosen? Okay, Councilor
I
Gishia,
can see
please.
my video and I can see you. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Excuse me a second. Councilor Gishia?
Thank you, Mayor Chow. Through you to Manager Golden, can you outline the changes from last week to this week and why it was pulled and why we're back here?
Mr. Manager?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. It is the dates, the obligations, the times that they were missed. We, in order to move forward and adopt this was something that was adopted by the previous city council. It is just the dates moving it forward.
Do we know why we would have to change the dates from September 1st of 23 to December of 23? Is it a construction issue? Is it?
Through Mr. Manager to Mr. Director of Development.
Yes, that is correct. So the TIF initially, essentially, we want it to kick in when the project is done and in use, essentially. And so this amendment changes it so that it essentially will kick in when the project is complete, and we want the tax credits to kind of get started. And so had we not made the change, they would have been sort of realizing the incentive prior to the project even being complete. So their project construction timeline has changed essentially since the council initially voted on it.
I'm smiling because it's only a couple months, so, and they're getting a full TIF at 10 years, so a couple months, I don't think it's going to hurt them. But the other thing that I'm curious about is if this property is sold, does the TIF go with it?
Through Mr. Manager to Director, Department of Public Development.
No, not automatically. So there is a process by which the folks selling the property would need to inform the city if they were going to do that, and then the city would be under no obligation to transfer that under that same agreement to the new owners. It would be essentially a process by which we would have to negotiate with those new owners at that time.
Would that have to come back to the council at that time? So all TIFs, when this happens, does that have to come back to the council when we waive that for the new owner or the sale of the property?
I'm not sure if I understand your question.
Okay. So if he sells or she sells the property, the TIF is there. Now, would that have to come back to the council for approval if it's going to continue with the new owner or change not going with it? Does that have to come back to the council?
Correct. It would have to come back to the council, absolutely. There would not be, because essentially it would be a deal with a totally different party at that point, and so that would require a vote of the council.
So what I'm hearing you say is if this property is sold, the TIF is no longer included unless the city approves it going, the transfer to the new owner?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions from member of the council? Hearing none, I don't know if the speaker is still on. Mr. Clerk?
I see her.
Okay. Can you hear us? I think we're having difficulty with the technicality, so we're going to just go for a roll call vote.
Move
Please,
to approve.
Mr. Clerk.
Council Getchia. Council Janess. Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Noon.
Yes.
Council Robinson.
Yes.
Council Rourke.
Yes.
Council Scott.
Yes.
Council Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Council Drinkwater.
Yes.
10 yeas.
We now go to vote item on 5.2, vote to transfer $315,000 DPW, waive full reading and second reading by title. City of Lowell and the City Council vote to transfer funds from the city manager's contingency account to the Department of Public Works insurance account to cover the increase in the city's insurance premium for 2023. Need a motion to adopt by Councilor Rook, second by Councilor Yem. Any comments or questions from any of the councilors? Councilor Gishia?
Thank you, Mayor Chow. Through you to Manager Golden or CFO Baldwin, when we look at insurance bills, we got this one just this month or in October. Is that when we got the last one for this calendar year that we're in? Because obviously, I think that would, if I'm reading it correctly, insurance is picked up for a calendar year, not fiscal year. So did we just get this one for calendar year starting in January?
Through Mr. Manager to Mr. CFO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the council, that's correct. The building insurance premium and the policy for all the city's building insurance runs annually from November to the end of October. So we've just procured a new policy, which is the results are the purpose for the transfer brought before the council this evening.
So that'll start in January. The question comes back, so last October when we, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Council. The policy is effective in November.
All right, so we get the bill in October for an effective date of November. A question, so last year at this time, we got a bill for the policy we're currently in of, what's it, $451,000? Is that what the bill was for?
That's right. That's correct, Councilor. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Was that for the total of the 9 accounts that were provided in that Munis report that we received? Or is that just for the 4 that we received?
Mr. CFO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe the report you're referring to was for all insurance accounts throughout the city. Those include not just building insurance, but also there are vehicle insurance. For example, in the senior center, the city pays insurance policy on the senior center bus. There are other city departments that pay insurance other than property insurance. So those are all included in that report. The one account within DPW, or it has a DPW cost code for it, that is what we use to pay building insurance for general fund assets. And then as of recently, the enterprise funds pay for the building insurance premium associated with the assets owned by the enterprise funds.
So is that 451,000 for the 4 accounts or for the total of everything you were talking about?
The 451 is for last year's premium for all of the umbrella policy for all city buildings.
Okay, so, all right.
So that's an apples to apples kind of comparison.
The DPW, including the water, wastewater, and the,
That's correct. I will note, Counselor, that if you go back further in the history, the premium was much less. So it was less. It was about 200,000-ish, and so we were able to afford the entire premium within the DPW insurance. We have seen a drastic increase over the last several years. This year being the most notable, and that's for a number of reasons that I'm happy to go into.
so this budget year that we're currently in, how much did we budget for these accounts? For the one that we're looking for the transfer into?
Mr. CFO?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think altogether, if you include the enterprise funds and the general fund, the number's 423,000.
So that's where the question comes in.
Mm-hmm.
So we had a bill back, not this October, last October, before budget hearings, that we billed out, we budgeted at 423 when we had a bill of 451. And we've watched patterns happen. If you look from 19 to 20, it went up 12.6%. Then from 20 to 21, it went up 26.3%. And from 21 to 22, 46.3%. Why would we budget 7.4% less in this current budget year versus what our bill was for last year? Why wouldn't we just included the 20% to say, okay, you know what? We're running these numbers and this is the pattern that it's going, but when you look at this pattern, you're seeing that we under-budgeted something that we've seen increases, and we've also had some major losses in some of our buildings, such as the high school with the flood. So that's really my question is, we're under-budgeting a lot of accounts. And when I look at the manager, he was here 40 days. And I don't know at that time he even knew that these accounts were running in these patterns of 12.6, 26.3, 46.3. And then, this one's a 60% increase. I'm just wondering why we're budgeting less, what the rationale was to it versus the bill we got last October before even these budget hearings were. And, are we looking, because this contingency account is being eaten quick by these numbers. And I'm not saying that, even by putting the 20% in, it would have captured the other 40%. But when you're looking at these increases, that, we just have to start looking at these accounts better and making sure that we're following the patterns of the percentage increases that we see.
You all set, Counselor? Okay. Counselor Robinson?
Thank you. I just had a quick question on this. I noticed one of the increases is due to the claim at Lehigh, the flood. Now, is this kind of like auto insurance or home insurance? Does that charge up, say, to this policy, stay with us for X amount of years and then revert back to, is it removed, so to say? And does that follow us? If we were to look into other potential insurances, is that claim going to follow us from start to finish?
Through Mr. Manager to Mr. CFO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's an excellent question. And the answer is yes. Just like your auto insurance, if you have an accident, in your history, you become a bigger risk for an insurance company to carry. So in shopping this coverage this year, we worked with 10 different companies to shop this policy. Some of them wouldn't even offer a quote. Some of the quotes were, it's based on $1 per $1,000 of assessed value. Many of the quotes were 10 cents per thousand. Many were above that. The one that we have that was the best deal of the 10 that we shopped was a 7-cent rate, but that got us to a premium that was much higher than what we had before. When we work with our agent to shop these policies, they give us the comments that they receive from the insurance companies, and they are looking at that claim history. So the Lowell High School, we spent over $2 million to repair and mitigate the damage from the flood that happened there due to the pipe. But you have to remember, it wasn't too many years before that we had a similar issue at the library with water damage. And so all of those together collectively inform an insurer's quote for us every year when we go out to the market.
Thank you. And does that have a statute of limitations as far as the individual claims? Does that kind of fade out eventually, or is it going to be part of our snapshot moving forward?
Mr. CFO?
I don't know exactly, but I would say for the foreseeable future, that will live with us for at least a few more years. Every year after, I will just offer some additional information. Every year after we enter into the policy, we work with the company. They come send people on site. They're looking at all of our buildings, and they're giving us comments about certain areas where we can improve preventative maintenance. So the better we do at that, the less it will live with us. So it really does underscore the preventative maintenance need in the city.
Thank you very much.
You also, Councilor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you mentioned, Connor, you mentioned 2019 that we had a claim for the library. Do you know what amount that was?
Mr. CFO?
I believe it was in the neighborhood of $300,000, which is less than our deductible. So that essentially was on us. And I'll just mention, with this policy, we have a $500,000 deductible.
Okay. You also mentioned, some of my colleagues also mentioned that we had a big claim with the high school flood last year of an amount of $2 million. So what else beside the high school flood and maybe the library that reflect this high premium? Do we have any other building, any stuff that we add to that bring about this high premium?
Mr. CFO?
So as far as the claims, those were the two most significant, but there are other factors, one being the market itself for commercial policies has gone up. The second is about the values of the buildings. And so, as a calculated effort, we increased the values because that's helpful for us in terms of replacement value. But overall, we increased our building values by 15%. So the building values went from about $756 million to $872 million, but the total insured value, which takes into account personal property and other factors, went up by about $114 million. But that's a good thing for the city, because if there were a catastrophic loss, we would recoup the full value.
Is the high school, the new high school gym, is that add to the new premium as well?
Yes. So we added. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. CFO, please.
We added about $78 million in new value associated with the gymnasium, the newly built gymnasium.
Okay. So for how long will we carry this high premium? I think you answered that through the manager, through you, Mr. CFO.
Mr. CFO?
For the foreseeable future, it's very difficult to give you an exact answer. Certainly, as we come back around every year, we'll be revisiting the premium. The better we do with preventative maintenance, I think it will live with us for less of a period of time, but for the foreseeable future, we can discuss this further with our agent to see if there's a more concrete timeline for how long it lives with you. If they have some standard calculation we could rely on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think, yeah, we have to pay it. But going forward, I was asking if there's any other option that we have to address this high premium. And may not be tonight, maybe a report later, someday, some week. Just to look at what other option do we have to address this high premium, if any. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. CFO?
I will, I'm sorry, Councilor.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
I will just add in response to your comments, Councilor, one option that's available to the city, although it may not be the best, is to increase the deductible. So that number is high as I see it right now, but if we were to increase the deductible to $700,000 or $1 million, that will have a downward pressure on the premium, but it's a risk-benefit calculation that we have to undergo because the threshold for recoupment from the insurance company would be higher as well.
Again, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You all set, Councilor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think a few things that I was going to mention were already brought up just now about the library. I was going to ask if that was part of the reason it had increased year over year so much. I really just believe that the lack of preventative maintenance that we've had in the district is just really showing right now, and it's showing in our insurance premiums, unfortunately. And I was trying to find out, is that increase in the premium, is that charged back against the maintenance of efforts to the schools?
Mr. CFO?
Yes, it is. And every year as we submit the end-of-year report to the schools submit the report, we give our maintenance of effort to them. But 44% of the total portfolio are school buildings, and so we do charge that towards the net school spending calculation every year on the end-of-year report, and that is to the tune, in FY22, it was just under $200,000.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Murcia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to get off subject here, but Councilor Noon mentioned the new gymnasium, and having heard those words, I was thinking that I should have mentioned this last week, but about 2 weeks ago with the new gymnasium, it seems that there was a sporting event and people were talking about the rain that was coming in through the windows. Did you hear anything about that? Like they weren't sealed properly and there were leaks coming in through the windows. If this is true, could you please check it out? And if it is true, could it be repaired? This is brand new, and I'm a little nervous about hearing that. I wasn't at the event, so I have to take people's word for it, but I heard it from numerous people, and I just want to check it out. And if it's true, while we have the people there, could they go back and caulk it properly or whatever? Thank you.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. Council, that was something that did happen in the very beginning, and that has been rectified. Just talked to the assistant city manager, and we will be back on that again. But that was something that was found to have happened in the beginning, almost right about the opening of the new gymnasium. So we will double check that. But as far as I know, that has been rectified.
Thank you.
You all set, Councilor?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Kishia?
Mr. Mayor, while we're on the gymnasium over there, through you to the manager. Manager Golden, could you set up another tour of that gymnasium with the city council? Because when we went through, it really wasn't finished. The bleachers weren't in. Some of that stuff wasn't done. It would be really good for, I think, all of us to be able to walk through, if that's the will of the council.
Okay. Mr. Manager?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through to the council. I'd love to do that. If we could send something out, if possible, maybe before the next few council meetings. I know you folks hustle to get here all the time, but maybe we can do it an hour before the council meeting, if possible. But we'll send some times out and some dates to the councilors that would like to attend.
Yeah, that's good.
Councilor Rook?
You can just go check out a volleyball game or a basketball game.
Good idea.
Yeah. Volleyball teams in the state
champ
playoff, right? So yeah,
a state playoffs.
Yep.
Excellent. We'll get the schedule and we'll go that day. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Counsel Gitche.
Yes.
Counsel Janice. Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Scott.
Yes.
Counsel Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Counsel Drinkwater.
Yes.
10 yeas.
Now go to item number 6, order from city manager. Order 60-day trial, waive full reading, second reading by title. In the city council order pursuant to chapter 266 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Lowell, Massachusetts, concerning section 266-6 thereof entitled Temporary Experimental Regulations. Temporary traffic regulations are hereby implemented for a period up to 60 days. Motion to adopt by Councilor Nguyen, second by Councilor Mercia. Any comments or questions by the councilor? Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. So on Concord Street, I was just wondering, it says it was brought in by petition, but I was just curious about that. Is that so that's the right side of the street going from Andover Street in?
Director of DPD?
I believe that's correct, yes.
I mean, I know there's some businesses over there, so have you spoken to the businesses, or they know about this?
I can confirm with Liz, but typically what we end up doing is usually when we make these types of recommendations, our economic development team will do outreach to the businesses. So I can just confirm that that's happened.
Okay. I'm just curious, because I know there's a business over there that uses the whole side of the street. And I'm just curious if that's what sparked it, or... Yeah, not sure. Okay, all right. And then through you to the manager, just one other quick question. Do we have a timeline when we're changing out the kiosks? I've just noticed that there's a few signs that are missing, and I didn't know if we're not gonna fix signs, you know, spot locations, or are we still repairing those until we switch everything over?
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. We are in the process of still fixing ones. Quite frankly, we're trying to bring some of the kiosks in the outer areas that maybe not have used as much to bring them into, I would say, the busier areas. We've had a lot of discussions with Laz over the past 2 months. I hope that the council has recognized some of the things that Laz has been doing. We've been kind of keeping them on a tight leash, to be quite frank with you. I'm not really satisfied with the service they've been giving the city. Assistant City Manager Machado has been very involved with this, but to answer your question, Councilor, I'm very concerned with giving an actual time frame. I do know that Mr. Ryan has been in negotiations with ordering, and my concern is we say 3 months, and could it be 4? Sure. But for the time being right now, we have been talking to Laz. We've been very, I would like to say, aggressively pursuing them to keep the garages clean, as well as keeping the parking kiosks actually working. And that has been a feat that is kind of a little bit more aggressive than you think it would be. It's not as hard as, it's a lot harder than it looks, to be quite frank with you. Okay. But my hope is to have a full report on that with Mr. Ryan once we have the ability to go out and we're assured of the time frame to revisit all of the parking kiosks.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You also, Councilor Mercia, did you have your hand up earlier?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have a motion last week about having the traffic engineer install a couple of school drop-off parking only signs on Reed Street with the entrance to the entrance of St. Michael's School. Having said that, I asked her about that because I didn't see it on the list here. She said it would be next week. So thank you very much. I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
No other comments? Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Counsel Getchia.
Yes.
Counsel Janice. Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Counsel Robinson.
Yes.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Scott.
Yes.
Counsel Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Counsel Drinkwater.
Yes.
10 yeas.
So that vote concluded the votes and the orders of the city manager. We now go to the subcommittee report. This report on economic downtown development subcommittee was tabled from last week. Any report, Councilor Nguyen?
Mr. Mayor, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a quick report on, as you mentioned, last council meeting. Before the last council meeting, the Economic and Downtown Development Subcommittee met at 5:45. In attendance is myself, Councilor Janice, and Councilor Scott. Also present was Councilor Murcia, Councilor Jam, Councilor Rourke, Councilor Kachia, Councilor Robinson. From the city, we have Parking Director Terry Ryan, Transportation Engineer Elizabeth Olman, and Deputy Director, Assistant City Managers Giovanni Rose. Parking Director Ryan noticed that the contract for new kiosks will be done very soon, and that we're going to have 142 kiosks that cost us. We put it out to bond for $1.3 million, and that when the contract is done, we should be expected kiosks within 13 somewhat week. And the new kiosks will be using solar power and have the ability to do advertising. So giving the demographic of low, we're trying to be inclusive. So the new kiosks will be having language like Spanish, and we're working on trying to get Cambodian or Khmer language in there. The new kiosks using app. Not only that, but also still be able to put coin or cash in there. It's paid by plate. Certainly a number of Councilor Scott asked questions about the programming of the meter. Director Ryan noticed that it was done by zone, and that 15 minutes could be set for free. Directors By Roses from DPD indicated that the goal is to move people to the parking garage because we have open spaces and parking garage. And Director Ryan also discussed dynamic pricings as well, and he's going to give, when we have the kiosk, he's going to come back to us and expound on what is the dynamic pricing involved. Also, Councilor Murcia questioned about security in the garage and the structure. Director Ryan noticed that recently Councilor bond $7.5 million to upgrade the garage. And we have the security guy, walking the garage and the parking garage. Also, Director Ryan plans to invest some money into camera at the garage for the safety reason of the people who use the garage. And those are report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor, for the report. Any comments or questions from any members of the council? Hearing none, in a motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Rourke. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to section 7.2, subcommittee report on housing, which met earlier this evening. Any report, Councillor Yam?
May I defer that to next week, Mr. Mayor?
Absolutely. Councillor Yam requests to table this to next week. We now go to section 7.3, which are the wire inspection reports. There are two of them. The first one is the National Grid, Verizon, New England, request installation of one dual pole on 135-155 Chelmsford Street. And the second one is National Grid, request installation of underground electric conduit at 135-155 Chelmsford Street. Any comments or questions by any member of the council? Hearing none, need a motion to accept and adopt accompanying orders by Councillor Murcia, second by Councillor Drinkwater. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to section 8, which is the petition. 8.1, TC Systems Inc., AT&T, Giamari Group requests installation of 2-inch conduit and pull box at Riverside Street and University Avenue. Need a motion. Any comments by the council on this item? Hearing none, need a motion to refer to public hearing on November 15, 2022 at 7 p.m. by Councillor Yam, second by Councillor Gishia. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now come to the exciting part on the City Council motions, and there are 18 of them. We'll kick off the City Council motion by Councillor Gishia. Request City 9.1. Councillor Gishia requests City Manager update the City Council on the trial for three-way stop signs at the intersection of Stedman Street and Westford Street. Second by Councillor Nguyen. Councillor Gishia.
The motion speaks for itself.
Excellent start, Councillor. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Motion 9.2, Councillor Gishia requests City Manager give the City Council an update on the Fire Department overtime. Second by Councillor Drinkwater. Councillor Gishia.
Thank you, Mayor Chow. I broke my streak. In this report, Manager Golden, one's good. One's better than none.
We're keeping tracks on what is the definition of a street councillor.
There you go. One's better than none. If in this report we can just provide a breakdown of by rank on how the overtime is actually being distributed over there, I think it's important just to start diving into this and starting to look by rank and see exactly how it's being distributed, because being off like that, it's a lot. You know, when we look at 1.1 million and then you look at 1.5 million, it just seems like it's a lot. And last year, when we came in, they budgeted at 1.1 million and then came in with a transfer of 1.5 million. Then the CARES Act picked up money for the COVID stuff. And then when you started looking at grants, at the end of the day, it was roughly $3 million. And that was only keeping companies open from January to July. To June 30th. And I just think that as we look at this, we should dive in deeper. The important thing for the residents of the city is to keep them open. But the important thing for all of us is to manage a budget at the same time is make sure that this is working. So I do think by rank works rather than diving into everything else. But when you look at the expenses and see exactly what is happening, and I think that once that comes back, I'll have more to say. Thank you.
Councillor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Gachia is correct. If you look at 2020, it was 1.5 million, and 2021, it was over 2.7 million, almost double. I know that this council priority is clear: keeping the company open, prioritize public safety. But we need to find a balance with finance. This is not sustainable. $1.1 million being used already, and we still have a long way to go. And this number could go over $3 million. I like the motion. We looked at it. We need to find a way to resolve this, because otherwise, you're talking about the manager contingency account. It's going to go out quickly just for the overtime. I, like everyone here, is, our priorities is, public safety. But we need to find a balance. It's important that we do that. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I was just wondering, do you know how we're doing with staffing levels over there? I saw Drake recently just got some people from the academy that they put on. Are we able to get anybody? I know the chief's not here anymore, but I was wondering, are we starting to see some of those recruits come out of the academy now to fill some of the voids?
Mr. Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the council. We are currently right now at 174, and then when you add the additional 15 folks during the day, that's 199. We do have, I believe it's 3. I don't have that. Well, we haven't done the report yet, but I do believe we have 3 coming out of the academy, and I know that the chief was looking towards transfers. The full complement, I believe, is the number is 213. I believe is our full complement number. So that's where we need to get to. So this is something that I think we're going to be diving into, whether it be next week or the week right after, when we start to discuss the number of people, as well as what Councilor Getchier was looking for in regards to the overtime by rank and how that seems to be going. We're balanced against the previous year, which of course was COVID, and that was one of the issues, but we do need to come to a solution here by the end of the day.
You also, Council,
Thank you. And in that report, I mean, is it worth taking a look at? 213 is the number we're shooting for, but I mean, is it 1 or 2 more? Is it 3 more? I mean, what does it look like? Do we pay the position year-round as opposed to an unfunded liability and continue to chase our tail with the overtime? I mean, those are some of the questions I think that the chief might be able to answer with staffing levels. 213 is a number that's thrown around, but if we increase more to that, I mean, what's the effect long-term? Thank you.
Mr. Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and through to the council. Council, that is a very good point. We had, I had a brief, and I say very, very brief discussion with some of the folks over the union, thinking that 213 is our magic number. Well, when you have 213, quote unquote, as the magic number where you wouldn't have as much overtime, is it possible to run a little bit higher, knowing that you're going to have people potentially, that's a very, there's a high probability of injury and whatnot coming in on this job, as well as people retiring. So it was really, truthfully, briefly discussed that if 213 seems to be that magic number, and I don't want to tell you I know exactly why that number is the sweet spot, is it possible to potentially go to that 217 or 216 or whatever the case is? So your point is very well taken. It was something that was, once again, briefly discussed to see if, but we're just trying to get back to sea level, if you would, at this point, and then we could be looking to plan appropriate staffing in the future as well.
You all set, Councilor? Councilor Musia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager. Mr. Manager, how many firefighters do we have now?
Mr. Manager?
Currently, right now, we have 174 that are working. We have a few that are out injured. And then we have 15, I'm going to say, term them as day workers, and I'm probably not saying that correctly, but they're not necessarily on a vehicle, on a truck, fighting fires. So there could be an MIS department or anything like that. Fire prevention, MIS, things like that.
Did you notice the amount of fires we had in the city? Every time you turned around, there was a fire. There was a fire on Myrtle Street. There are fires. I'm wanting to, what the public wants is public safety. And I know we're concerned about the money, but I'm concerned about safety, and I'm concerned about keeping the fire stations open. And and I know that they don't just fight fires. There was a gas leak in the neighborhood. I had the fire department over for my neighbor next door, and there was sewage that was coming through his well in the basement with a sump pump, and it was, I'm not privy to all that information. I don't know if we're gonna die from it, and you could smell it clearly out in the yard, and it was coming into my house too. That's how bad it was. Firefighters came over and put the man at ease, because I don't want to have a gas leak or we don't know what it was. So they do other things besides just fighting fires. But I mean, I know we're trying to save money, but I'm concerned about keeping fire stations open. And if it requires them to work overtime because there's a fire and there's not enough people and they need to call people in, I'm all for it. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Councilor Rourke?
Thank you. I apologize, it wasn't mentioned earlier. If we could just get a reason, for the overtime broken down, why on a certain shift or a day overtime was required, whether it be vacations, sick time, or, travel, conferences, and stuff like that. Thank you.
Councilor Kishia?
Thank you, Mayor Chow. I don't want anyone to think that this is about saving money per se. This is about proper budgeting. When you know a number, let's budget the number. That's really what it was about. We knew at budget time that this was going to be over. We asked that question multiple times between Councilor Noon and myself. And we came back and we're told this story. So once we're told the story, I would love to get into the mind of the chief and see how he came out to that $1.5 million and see exactly, okay, where is the breakdown? What went off this year that wasn't there last year? But I think we're on the same pace this year as we were last year. I don't think anything has changed. I think what happens in the fire department is people use their time early in the fiscal year, and it causes that inflation to the overtime. And then as it goes through, you'll see it will dial back into the $2.7 to $3 million range. But that, I don't want people to walk away from this and think that it's anything other than trying to get middle management to start budgeting properly so that this council understands the exact cost as they come through. And the manager at the time had come through with a wish list from his contingency account that we all were in favor of. I wasn't, but that we were all in favor of using those funds for. And I don't think those funds are going to be there. One question I would ask of the manager is just to, when you look at your personal services account for the fire department, when you look at your regular cost, your regular hours, could you give us a percentage of what the overtime is compared to that? And then ask other communities of the same size what their percentage is of their regular hours. Because if it translates to the same, say Worcester, you come out to Worcester and their regular cost is this and 20% is in overtime, then you're not doing anything any different than any other community. It just comes down to, all I was asking for was a report and try to dive into the thought process of the $1.5 million. And I think that when we look at by rank, I think that will give us some of the story. And as Councilor Rourke had said, you know, to look at other areas. So that's really my thought. It's not to try to say that it's too much to cost to save lives or anything like that. It was just, we were told the number. We're trying to stick to the number. What went outside that pattern that would make someone think that? That's all. Thank you.
No other comments or hands raised. We'll take a voice vote on this motion. On the favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to the next motion, 9.3 by Councilor Gishier. Request city auditor provide city council with a monthly munis report of all accounts. Second by Councilor Scott. Councilor Gishier.
The motion speaks for itself.
Thank you, Councilor. No other comments. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Motion 9.4, Councilor Robinson requests city manager have proper department look into feasibility of banning parking on one side of the street near 30 Shed Street due to blocking of trash pickup and emergency services. Second by Councilor Yam. Councilor Robinson.
Yeah, this is it's been an ongoing issue at Shed, tight street, to the point where fire department had to go door to door to get them to move vehicles. Response to peanuts, one of the residents had. So again, it might already be banned. If that's the case, then I guess it's enforcement. So anything that could be done is appreciated. Thank you.
No other comments. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to motion, actually 9.5, we already have taken that up already. We now go to motion 9.6. Councilor Robinson requests city manager have proper department provide detailed plan of action to address leaf removal efforts in public green space. Second by Councilor Nguyen. Councilor Robinson.
Motion speaks for itself.
Thank you, Councilor.
Mr. Mayor, could I comment on that?
Councilor Gishier.
Through you to Manager Goldman, with Veterans Day just around the corner, can we make sure all those monuments are taken care of? Thank you.
No other comments. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to motion 9.7. Councilor Robinson requests city manager provide schedule of upcoming community information sessions regarding accessing ARPA funding. Second by Councilor Mercier. Councilor Robinson.
Thank you. Again, I know we have timeframes on this ARPA funding and some of those baskets. There's a lot of questions still out there of how can people access these different baskets of money that they might qualify for. So sooner the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. No other comments. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Motion 9.8. Councilor Robinson requests city manager put together a public demonstration on permitting process, SOP, involving case CSE, DPW, LFD, LPD, and all other relevant departments, including highlighting costs associated with event planning, to be recorded and placed on city's website, like a video tutorial. Second by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Robinson.
I get a lot of questions from members in the community that are trying to do events of all different types. And one thing that I've consistently been hearing is if there was a video tutorial from A to Z of who to contact, what the permitting process looks like, what's required, if you have propane or charcoal at events, etc., and also costs. So I think this might be something that we could use in other areas as well of local government to give video tutorials that walk people through. Thank you.
No other comments. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to motion 9.9. Councilor Robinson requests city manager have parking department provide a report on how many incidences of patrons being stuck in parking garages in past year and what corrective measures have been taken. Second by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Robinson.
I've received many calls from people that said they go to pay and the arm doesn't lift or whatever, and they're stuck in the garage. And the phone number that's available, no one answers the phone. So I'd like to see what we can do to correct that. Thank you.
No other comments. All in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. We now go to motion 9.10. Councilor Nguyen requests city manager work with state delegation to discuss the effect electric rate increases will have on the community and advocate to the Department of Public Utilities regarding same. Further, request city manager ensure fuel assistance options are listed on the city's website. Second by Councilor Drinkwater. Councilor Nguyen.
Motion speak for itself.
Thank you, Councilor. First off the bat, all in favor say aye. Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Oh, there was a Russian speaker?
No, next one.
The next one, okay. All right, Mr. Clerk, I thought I was rushing too much there. Motion 9.11, Councilor Nguyen requests city manager have appropriate department make Kinsman Street a one-way. Second by Councilor Rourke. Councilor Nguyen, I understand there's a registered speaker. Do you want to speak?
Please,
go first?
yes, have the registered speaker go first.
Masada Jones. I see her. You have to unmute. Masada Jones.
Ms. Jones, can you hear us? We might be experiencing another difficulty. Until she comes on, Councilor Nguyen, would you like to make an explanation on your motion?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this motion came from a number of residents, and Masada Jones is one of them. As some of us who travel that area know that Kinsman Street is a very narrow street. I was told that many cars had been hit or damaged due to the fact that, car parked on both sides of the street and on sidewalk. That certainly blocked, the car blocked the pedestrian from walking on the sidewalk. So a trial basis on one way, certainly to see how it works, helpful to the resident on the street. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Clerk just informed me that the registered speaker might be on now.
Well, I see her. So it's Masada Jones. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, City Council. I'm glad to be here with y'all tonight. My name is Masada Jones, and I purchased my home on... I am unmuted. Yes.
We can hear
I
you
can hear
fine
you.
if you want to continue. Okay. Yep. I think we might be having the same issue. Until we resolve that, I'm going to go to Councilor Scott. Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is an excellent motion. Kinsman Street is extremely tight. I actually reached out to the assistant city manager and had a few no parking here to corner signs placed in the last couple of weeks. For the same reason, residents witnessed a fire truck not able to turn a corner. So we did that. So I do think it's an excellent motion, but I do think that there should be input. I don't know if the motion is to have input from the traffic engineer to examine the area, because I did have several neighborhoods express concerns neighbors expressed concerns that live on Newhall Street that runs parallel to it, that they're worried that that will become, you know, heavily traveled because of the one-way. And they asked me to speak tonight and ask that
Yes, can you
that
hear
road
me?
be made one-way the opposite direction.
Okay.
So just if we could have a, you know, a review of the entire area, I think that would make sense. Thank you.
Excellent comment. No other comments? Is the speaker still on?
Still on. Masada Jones.
Police to come, and they said that this happens often, so I thought that this could be a feasible. Yeah. Did you hear anything I said? Hopefully.
Yep, continue.
Please continue. Okay, I apologize. We are unable to make connection through this method. We now will go to a voice vote if there's no other comments from the council. Councilor Musia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we have a request for a street to be one-way, what we do is we have the traffic engineer and some people from our staff or whomever, they go to the different neighbors and they ask, would you be in favor? Like they take a survey of the street and they ask, which way would you want it one way, from this going that way or from this way going that way? Just like I did on a street off of Gorham Street. So that's how they kind of work that. With the new people, I don't know what their process is, but that's what we would do years ago.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions?
Yes,
But
I'm here.
I
Can
will
you hear
say
me?
that Kingsman Street is Kinsman Street, very narrow street, and yes, it warrants, I believe, to be one-way.
Councilor Scott?
Sorry, would we need to substitute the motion to send it to the traffic engineer, or, because I don't think it should be done alone, just as a trial?
So I think the neighbors should have a say in what they want for their street. Which way do they want it? Do we know which way they want it one way?
So they'll send it to the traffic engineers to modify the motion?
Would that be the recommendation of the manager's office and traffic engineer? From when you get the report, that will be the recommendation be in there? Okay. Would that be okay, Councilor?
That's good, yes.
I second it, yeah.
Did you, Councilor Scott, did you want to refer it to somebody, or would this be okay?
No, that's fine.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it, motion is carried. We now go to motion 9.12 by Councilor Janess and Councilor Nguyen. Request city manager provide an update on the status of the Hunger Homeless Commission and plans to restart the efforts of that commission. Councilor Janess is not present, so we need a second. Second by Councilor Scott. Councilor Nguyen?
I think, Mr. Mayor, Councilor Janess has actually brought that about, so he has a number of motion on, and he's not feeling well tonight, so he asked to table all of his motion, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, that's what I do. Yes, second.
Okay, just to table motion.
Refer them to
Refer
not table.
12 to 17 to next week?
Motions, yes.
Right. Okay. Right. So that sounds pretty good to me, Councilor. Okay, and we had a second by Councilor Musia, right? And that motion is passed. Well, motion 9.18 is a motion by myself. Request city manager have transportation engineer investigate the installation of a crosswalk on Lawrence Street between Roger Street and Swift Street, second by Councilor Nguyen. Not to be outdone by Councilor Gishier. This motion speaks for itself. All in favor? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Any announcement? Actually, Councilor Yan, you shall go last.
So bad.
You know, Councilor Gishier, because we know what's coming from Councilor Yan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today
Councilor
is
Yam
a big day for Councilor
Yam.
Councilor Danny O'Rourke. So we just want to say happy birthday to Councilor O'Rourke. Could we all sing?
Happy birthday, Councilor
Thank you,
Rourke.
Paul. Thank you.
Are we allowed to sing
No,
happy
no place
birthday?
I'd rather be than here. Yes, sir.
Councilor Gishier and Councilor Musia.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to just make an announcement that the Lowell Commission on Disabilities have secured transportation to the polls for Election Day, November 8th, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. for the elderly and disabled voters. To book or call for a ride, call 978-654-9916. Again, to call or to book a ride, 978-654-9916. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Musia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Salvation Army is having their annual Salvation Army breakfast. It's this Thursday, November 3rd, 7 to 9 in the morning, a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rook, did you have your hands up earlier? Mr. Manager? You all set? Okay. Motion by Councilor Rook to adjourn, second by Councilor Leahy. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.